I'm Donny.
And I'm Anthony.
And we make up the GW Branding Group, here to bring you the Off the Ground podcast, the podcast where we interview entrepreneurs and find out how they got their businesses off the ground. Well, welcome and thanks for tuning in to the Off the Ground podcast. This is Anthony and I'm Donny from the GW Branding Group, and we are super pumped to have on Brian Stumm from Stumm Insurance. Brian, you want to introduce yourself?
Hey, thanks. It's great to be with you guys. We're here on Masters Friday, Good Friday, and no place I'd rather be. So I'm Brian Stumm, one of the owners of Stumm Insurance, and happy to be on the show.
Great. We're super happy to have you.
Yeah, thank you for coming on the show. And we want to get right into what it is you do and give us your background. I know that we have a little bit of information on your background and how you've grown the business. So what's your origin story?
How far back do you want me to go?
To the start.
Sure.
Start. Yeah.
Start a Stumm.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah. Actually, I was working for GE Financial, running our distribution in the Northwest in Seattle, and about early 2006, my brothers and I started having conversations. We had dialogue weekly over the phone, long distance, talking about what life would look like on April 1st of 2007 if we all decided to quit our jobs on the same day. And so we had been planning for that, putting together a business plan, and that's exactly what happened. So I moved back from Seattle and came to the Chicago area, which is where we're all from, and we all quit our jobs on the same day, and we started Stumm Insurance. We had a little bit of help. My dad was in the business, and my dad had his own little book of business. He was a one-man band and ran a business out of his house, and he was looking for his exit strategy, and he found a couple of sons that were dumb enough to quit their jobs and buy his business, and it's just grown from there.
Awesome. Were you in insurance before that, or?
I was,
okay.
Yeah. So GE Financial dabbled in employee benefits for a little while, and they sold their that business to Sun Life. But I graduated from college and went right into insurance, and was working as a sales rep selling group products in Chicago and then out in Seattle for about 10 years before.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely. Give us some idea of what your exit strategy was when you decided that on that day you guys were going to go and launch your business. What kind of planning went into that?
As I mentioned, it was really conversations. My brothers and I were in sort of different stages in life. I think one of my brother's wives was pregnant, and I had a couple of kids at the time, and even living in different cities, quite candidly. So there are 3 other brothers in the business besides myself, and 2 were in insurance, and 1 was in accounting. So trying to figure out really who's going to do what. Can we get along? Our wives love each other. That helps. And we all get along. We all have different sort of skill sets, so we kind of stay in our own lanes, and it seems to be working. So.
Definitely. So give us an idea of some of the different skill sets that you guys had and how you've used that dynamic to formulate the company.
So I run sales. That was pretty easy. They don't necessarily love selling, so they're like, you can do that. And had the brother with some accounting background. It's pretty easy. He's sort of our de facto CFO, and then my other brothers, they are really around the creative side, developing the work product for our clients. So think more operational, but again, seems to work, and it started with just us, and as we've continued to grow, we've made some incredible hires to expand our leadership team because we couldn't be doing it just ourselves. So looking for skill sets that really complement what we have at our core, and now the leadership team, I think, has 8 in total on it. So
wow.
It's cool.
Yeah, I can imagine as even starting with 4, it might be hard to make some executive decisions. You find that, I mean, how do you guys make decisions as a group of 4, or early on? How was that?
Yeah, that's a question I get asked from time to time, and the even number doesn't always help, right?
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, typically when any major decision comes up, and this goes back all the way to 2007, we were usually 4-0 or 3-1 When it's 3-1, the one just gets to voice their opinion one last time for everybody to hear, and then gets outvoted, and that's it, and we move on. Very seldom do we have a stalemate at 2-2, and when we do, we generally just punt. We don't make a decision, and we give it another month and maybe another month, and at some point the situation's changed or somebody's found a different opinion and moved to another side to make it an easy decision at that point.
Well, that's great that you guys have that structure in place.
And that's probably good advice, too, to kind of just let it breathe sometimes if an issue is causing that kind of strife in a team.
Yeah, arm wrestling was not going to fix it. So
Right. That's great. Can you share with us some challenges that you guys have had, some setbacks that you might have had with growing that side of the business and on the sales side?
Yeah, I think even speaking for my brothers, we really have had two challenges that seem to pop up from time to time along the way, and it's just the nature of the rapid growth that we've had. And one, without a doubt, has been our space issues. You lock yourselves into these leases, and you continue to grow, and we got people in hallways and in card tables just to try to make it work. And that's a pain. That's a challenge. So you're either overpaying for your real estate because you have too much, or you're underpaying because you have everybody crammed in. And if there was a way that it could grow a little easier with us, that would be ideal. But it's just not the nature of the world. So space is definitely a thing. And probably the other issue too is that if sales were nice and steady and we got one new customer every single month and we could plan for that, in a perfect world, you can also hire to support that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's just not the nature of sales. So there have been once or twice in the 16 years where sales went a little faster than what we could hire to support that, and so it puts a little strain on the personnel and the rest of the employees. So we've decided not to make that mistake, and we're constantly trying to hire out in front of whatever sales objective may be coming.
Yeah. Is there, are there any lessons that you can extract from overcoming those challenges?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest one that I just mentioned is, we're trying to constantly hire to get out in front of that. So there may be employees, and I would say this for any business owner, you may have employees that are not at full capacity. Nobody likes to do that. That's expensive, but that's a really good decision to make because, again, then you've created that capacity for whenever the new business does come in. If you're in a high-growth type of organization like we think we are.
Yeah.
Definitely. So take us back to when you guys started. How was it that you came into deciding what to get into in terms of building your building real estate, in terms of what buildings you chose? How does that factor into your decisions?
So when you're starting a business and you have no real significant revenue, but yet mouths to feed, you're looking for whatever deal you can get. And we were very fortunate. My best childhood friend, I bumped into his dad at a wedding and told his dad that we were starting a business, and he goes, "Well, I got just the place for you." He happened to be a landlord in a very small commercial building in one of the suburbs of Chicago, and he goes, "I got just the space." And I said, "Well, how much is it?" He said, "We'll figure it out." And I'm like, "Well, is there a lease?" He goes, "Do you need a lease?" I said, "No." I said, "Okay." So he gave us the sweetheart deal of a lifetime. We didn't pay any rent for the first few months to get it going, which I now come to find out is actually pretty normal in the real estate world. But charged us next to nothing, and that's kind of how we got going, and it was great. And without Dr. Hatcher, I don't know what we would have done. We would have been in a closet at home somewhere. So, but then from there, it was. We have a couple of great real estate partners that we lean on to do some of that work for us. Yeah. Just trying to figure out where we should be because we actually right now have two offices. We have one in Warrenville in the western suburbs and then one in Rosemont right next to the airport, which has also been kind of a cool thing. We like to say we banked in a three-pointer. If you know anything about basketball, people don't intend to bank in a three-point shot. And we kind of did by having 2 offices, because now we're able to recruit and ultimately hire employees that might live way up on the North Shore or way out in the southern or western suburbs too.
Yeah.
Definitely. So tell us more about Stumm Insurance and what you guys specialize in.
Okay. Stumm Insurance is obviously a generational. Believe it or not, my great-grandfather, my grandfather, and my dad is a generational family-owned insurance business, so we're privately held. And exclusively what we do is manage employee benefit plans for small to mid-sized employers. So think, health insurance, dental, vision, life, disability, that kind of stuff. What an employer would consider employee benefit package, they hire a broker to help them manage that, and that's us. So we're working with our clients to, really for any business in America, health insurance tends to be one of their top 5 expenses. Behind labor and whatever else they may be in, raw materials or advertising or their space. Health insurance is in the top 5. So it's a big ticket item, and we try to help employers figure out how to manage that to ultimately improve their business. Taking a sophisticated approach is super important, because if you screw that up, given the size of the expense, it can wreak havoc on their bottom line. But also culturally, employee benefits theoretically take a big role in establishing the culture and how you hire employees and how you retain employees, and the culture that you're building, is it aligned with the benefits package? So I think the broker takes a pretty significant role in both financially and culturally helping businesses grow and do what they do. And so we're managing today almost 600 employer plans across the country. Most of what we do is in the Chicagoland area, although we have clients in about 22 different states.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'd love to, you mentioned kind of when you bought the business with your brothers that it was a really small book of business to begin with. I'd love to hear kind of, what your sales pitch was as a smaller benefits broker trying to pitch to businesses to entrust you with, one of their top 5 expenses.
Yeah. Good question. So it was, my dad had 30 clients, and that was it. And we were a 4-person shop. And so we were constantly trying to, pretend to be much, much bigger than we were. It was like, people think that, we need to partner with these big agencies, and how are we ever going to compete with that? So it was constantly, even through the promotion or the names or website or whatever sort of external appearance we could have, we were always trying to look bigger.
Yeah.
And it's funny, because I think to some extent that almost never goes away. But we have fast forwarded to a spot where we feel, even though we are still relatively small, nationally speaking, we're still a relatively small boutique type shop, that we don't have to be everything to everyone, and we want to partner with businesses that we're the right fit for.
Right.
So if a business says we need somebody with a global presence, then great, go for that. Or if there's somebody that needs a little more hand-holding or wants somebody a broker partner that can be in their office every single day, that might not be us either. So, trying to find that sort of sweet spot.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's something that we worked through for a long time.
Do you find, and can you kind of retell a moment where you guys had to make a pivot, maybe from trying to be everything for everybody to deciding what your boutique shop can offer?
Being put on the spot, no. I can't really think of an exact moment like that. I really think it's just, when we were smaller, we were, again, trying to do things. And a lot of it was that website, or talking about the number of clients, or talking about testimonials of clients that we work with, and hey, give us a shot. And I think once we had a chance just to sit down with people and they recognize that we're genuine and that we are pretty good at what we do,
Yeah.
How many employees we had became less of a focus.
Definitely. So you mentioned the website and, making everything look really Great. So how has branding and marketing played into that? Is that something that you were always focused on?
Not always focused on. Just being perfectly candid with you, that was at the onset. There's a lot of money that goes into that we didn't have. So I think between my brothers and I, there are like 3 marketing degrees. So we try to do it ourselves. And as we've gotten a little bit larger, and frankly, one of my brother's wives has a marketing background. She's been able to help us with the branding, and she's very passionate about branding and that it's consistent from not just the website, but from the work product to the swag that our employees wear. We want all this to look the same. So we have been able to spend a little more money on it now, and branding is very important, particularly since it has my last name on it. We got to protect that brand.
Definitely. So give us an example of how your brand came to be in terms of where you're at now, like your focus. Was your niche in employee benefits always that niche, or did you start with any kind of insurance or different types?
So we were always employee benefits right from the get-go. And when we were talking about quitting our jobs and starting this company, my dad's business was under a different name. And so we thought about what kind of name should we give the business, and thinking it would be a lot easier and a lot cooler if it didn't have that word insurance in it. So there were a number of different iterations that had kind of come up, and a number of different logos that came up. And ultimately, I think it was an outside friend that was in marketing, and he developed the Shield. And the Shield is protection. It's an insurance kind of analogy. And the 4 different colors represent the 4 different generations of this business, and each of those colors represents one of me and my 4 brothers. So there was a lot that went into it, and that's actually been since 2007 when we started. We haven't made any changes to it. The word insurance, we just, again, think of it what you want. Some people hate that word. If you're in it, you enjoy that word. I don't think anybody loves that word. But it's who we are. So it's our identity. And then, was it something else we wanted to use? And quite candidly, we felt that our last name it was going to carry a little bit of weight at the end of the day, just with our immediate friends and family as we were trying to grow the business, not hiding from who we are. And, it worked to help us get our business off the ground. And now that we're a little bit bigger, Stumm means less to anybody, but it still has a great meaning for us. So it's really the brand story. There you go.
Yeah, that's great. So how has that been able to help you in differentiating between other competitors of yours?
Probably the biggest differentiator for us right now is the fact that we are generational, family owned, and still privately held. There are very few of our competitors that could describe themselves the same way.
Yeah.
Tons of M&A going on in our world, and a lot of either private equity owned or publicly traded firms that we're competing with. And some people, they appreciate still the family-oriented nature of our business, and because it doesn't just carry on in the name, it carries on throughout the entire organization. So we enjoy being privately held and being, again, family. I think of all of our employees as part of one giant family, and we joke it's the Stumm Nation, and it's not just our employees, it's our employees' spouses and children, and the Stumm Nation is a real thing. So I think clients or prospects, they see that and they know that this is a genuine organization. So that's probably one of our biggest differentiators, is that we care about our employees, and as a result, we're able to attract some of the best talent in all of Chicago, and they are excited to come to work. They enjoy where they work, and they're delivering a service. And when you're delivering a service, it's really just all about how happy an employee is when they showed up that day, right? I don't have a shiny tool or widget that we're selling. We're selling the happiness of our own employees.
That's awesome. And to cultivate that in a workplace, I'm sure takes time and effort and reinforcement. From the top, what do you do on a day-to-day basis to make people feel at home?
I wear hoodies when people are wearing sport coats. We're just being genuine. We have a ton of fun, and we work hard, play hard, mantra kind of thing. I'd say the challenging part has been having two different offices and making sure that the cultures are similar in both places. And, we did that just by the very basics, the paint colors and the carpet and the signage, in the furniture, it looks and feels exactly the same. I think my brothers and I all are similar enough in some way that really is where it starts. It's the fun, it's the energy that we're trying to spread throughout. And I don't know. I mean, you have to ask the employees, I guess. But we have a great time, and I think that every single one of our employees knows that we care deeply about them and we appreciate what they're doing every day.
That's great.
Definitely. So how has your hiring strategy differentiated between, when you first started to now? Is that something that, as you said, you kind of have developed that to be more on the front end, so when you guys have that sales overload, you're able to, be able to get through that in a strategic way. So how is that differentiated between when you first started hiring? Has it been something that you've really had to grow on, or is that were you always really into that strategy?
No, it's definitely evolved. When we first started, it was just kind of putting the word out, like, hey, we might need some help, we might know somebody. And the first couple of people that we hired were people that we knew, or somebody made an introduction and said, hey, I know somebody looking for a job, you should talk to her. Go to a party and somebody says, hey, I'm thinking about doing something different. I'm like, hey, we need to hire somebody. That's really how it started. And when you're hiring one or two people a year, you could get away with that. When the hiring needed to ramp up to a few more than just one or two a year, then we really looked first to our own employees. We've got a referral program for our employees where they get paid when they introduce us to their friend or their old coworker. And again, I'd much rather go with who you know. That's one of the ways to protect your culture, is that somebody can vouch for somebody. It's not a complete random stranger. Yeah. But then even still, that gets hard and that gets saturated. So we have now really an outside individual on a part-time basis. Probably soon will be a full-time basis, just doing the hunting for us. But all the rest of that still continues. I'm still looking for good people that I might know that are looking for a job, and our employee base is getting bigger and bigger. So their ability to connect to their networks to introduce us to people is getting bigger and bigger. So it just allows us now to hire. I don't know. I think we have probably 10 employees that will be hiring in 2023. And
where's your biggest need for employees as you experience growth? Is it sales, or is it back end stuff?
So it's a little bit of both. Our sales team is really in total about 10 out of the 55-ish that we have. So we want to continue to build out the sales team. It's just not going to grow quite as quickly as the service end of the organization. So sales' role truly is to just go out and develop new business. And once that new business comes on board, then it is managed by one of the 12 service teams that we have. So all these different teams, and that they manage the client relationship. So just by virtue of the fact that it's 20% of the organization, 80% most of the growth, and most of the employee base would be in the service end.
Okay.
Definitely. So can you walk us through the process of developing some plans for different organizations. How does that process start when an employee comes to you looking for benefits?
So if an employee,
employer.
an employer is
Employer,
coming
yeah.
to us, yeah,
Yep.
sure. If I give you all of my trade secrets, then I'd have to kill you, and we'd have to figure out what to do with this video. It's probably, at least for me, and I think for most of our employees, particularly on the sales side, that's one of my favorite parts of my job is looking at an employer's program and simply conducting due diligence. Like, hey, let me see what you're doing. And I might tell you that you're in great shape, and it was nice to meet you. If the situation changes or your relationship erodes, you'll think of me. But more often than not, we're peeling back the onion, so to speak, and we're taking a look at what they've done, and we're going to help them. Hey, maybe you might think about structuring it a little bit different. And so there's a very in-depth sort of financial analysis that goes into the work that we do. And then we talk a lot about also how the benefit experience is. So asking the employer, hey, the last time that you hired an employee or the last time that an employee left, what did it look like? How did it feel? Did they like your benefits package? Did they, in their exit interview, say, I can't afford your insurance or whatever? So, taking that into consideration, coupled with, technology and how do your employees sign up for insurance or compliance? Did you know you have an issue over here? So all these kinds of things are part of our due diligence, if you will, which again is one of the most exciting parts of my job. And then sharing that with the employer groups that we meet.
Definitely. So there's no cookie cutter way. You really are taking a deep dive into each organization to figure out what works best for them.
Yeah, I wish it was as easy as cookie cutter, but it's just not.
Right.
Every employer's benefit plan is dramatically different. And they could be two employers in Chicago of the same size in the same industry, and their programs are going to look different. So, no two are the same.
Do you think that makes it hard for an employer to shop around for insurance providers for their employees?
A lot of it is a relationship. So if there's no real problem with the relationship, and if they believe that they're in a good spot, then you're not going to disrupt that. But I think most employees that are managing the benefit plans, they could think of themselves as stewards of the benefit plan, and so it's a part of their job is just to periodically review and see and have somebody from the outside take a peek at what they're doing, and then when they do that, then that's when we can come in and talk to them about.
That's great. Aside from potentially hiring 10 new employees, do you have any other big plans for 2023?
We have a family outing. We're going to the Brookfield Zoo with the Stumm Nation.
Awesome.
And we do an employee boat party on Lake Michigan. That'll be happening.
Oh, yeah.
No, those are the fun things. A number of different initiatives, of course, that we're taking a look at. A lot of them aren't going to mean anything to your listeners, but we will. Talking about on the sales side, so we have run into some capacity issues there where I can't do as much as we need to continue to grow on the trajectory that we have. So we've hired a sales manager that is my counterpart to continue to hire more salespeople that allow us to continue that organic growth that we've enjoyed for the last 16 years. So that was sort of a big initiative there on the sales side that's newer for this year. And on the service side, again, it's just things that won't mean anything to your listeners. Let's say it that way. So no,
That's all right.
Definitely. So what channels have you guys found effective for your sales strategies?
ABC, CBS, NBC. What are we talking about?
Sales,
Sales
marketing
channels,
channels.
Yeah.
How do you get your
Yeah.
message out
Yeah.
there? How do you drum up leads? Or maybe some of this is industry specific, and you don't want to give your secrets. But
No. I don't think that it is, terribly different than how our competitors are also trying to do the same thing. So each of our sales reps is given a goal and told that they effectively are running their own business. So whatever they want to do or however they feel that they'll be most successful, they're welcome to give it a go. And so really the ways in which we drum up new business or meet new employers is everything under the sun that you could probably think of. So it could be something as simple as setting up a booth at a trade show, or shaking hands at Chamber of Commerce meetings, or getting involved with a local charity and sitting on a board to meet folks that way. It could be playing golf with people on a regular basis and getting to know other business owners in the community, to networking with strategic partners, other not competitors, but people that do similar things with employers. So maybe it's that employer's lawyer, or that employer's accountant, or that employer's retirement plan manager, and talking with them, or their payroll company vendors. So they make again strategic partnerships with different centers of influence, if you will, all the way to good old-fashioned cold calling and LinkedIn stalking and the other things that you can kind of think of. So it's all in that.
It sounds like you're primarily relationship focused. Does that mean a lot for companies that you are a family business and that you are pretty much looking to grow with the business and partner with them on a long-term basis?
I think so, yeah. As I mentioned earlier, I think that is one of our big differentiators, and that helps. Just again, trying to find other business owners that think and operate and align with us, then it makes good sense.
Yeah, because I think of insurance a lot of times where people are just kind of jumping around between providers. Maybe it's different with employee benefits, but you're trying to, pick up your 20 pieces of silver or what have you from the different guys, because people are always trying to get you a lower quote and stuff. But how do you create longevity with your relationships in this business?
Yeah, certainly we have clients that want to hop from, one health insurance carrier to the next every year, constantly chasing the low rate. And some are very content with their insurance provider and they don't want to make a change at all. That, at the end of the day, is less of our decision and more of our client's decision. What we're working hard and trying to do every day is just deepen that relationship with that employer. I think by servicing that client well, being the people that we are, and bringing the solutions that we do to our clients, they appreciate that, and they're going to hang out with us. What we're finding, as I'm sure every other business in America is that there is turnover within an organization, and turnover sometimes can disrupt that relationship. But there's also a lot of M&A going on everywhere, so that can disrupt a relationship. But outside of the turnover within an organization or businesses being bought and sold, our clients tend to appreciate the type of work that we do, because we do believe that it's very different than what else is out there, and we encourage them to take a look. And sometimes they do, but generally we're seeing a very high retention, which just speaks volumes to us and makes me feel good to know that our clients appreciate what we're doing, and that's really what's going to help build a relationship. Sure. I can send them however many Cubs and Bulls tickets I want, but if we're not doing the job, that stuff kind of doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And having a retention rate like that, I think, probably carries a lot of weight with your brand and gives you a lot of credibility when you're pitching new clients.
It's a lot easier to retain a client than it is to go chase a new client, and it's a lot less expensive to do a good job to retain a client than it is to try to do a good job and go find one. So it's helping.
What's your advice for the employer benefits that the smaller groups, that people who are just starting out? What's your advice for them on that client building? Is it a little different that you have a team? How is that changed and from the start to now?
So I just want to make sure I got your question. My advice for a small employer that is needing to offer insurance to their employees, or
Correct.
Okay. We get that question a lot because there are people starting businesses every day, just like we did 16 years ago. And typically, the employer starts a business, doesn't need insurance because he or she has a spouse that has a job where they can get insurance from there. Or maybe they are on COBRA from their old employer that they quit while they started their job. And but that at some point, the rubber meets the road, and an owner of a small business decides, I need to put in a health insurance plan, and I don't know where to begin, or I don't know what to do. And that is either because their COBRA expired, or their spouse quit their job, or now they're ready to hire, and there's a contingency or prerequisite for that employee to come work for them if there's health insurance. You know what I mean? So at that point, then the business owner would need to find a broker, find somebody that can speak this health insurance language, and figure out how to stand up a plan. It's not as inundating as you would want or think, and can be done relatively quickly, but it's pretty easy.
How long does that process usually take for them to get that plan in place?
I was like, gun to a head, like, yeah, you probably have it done in a couple days. 30 days is ideal, somewhere in between there.
Yeah, definitely. Let's take it back to when, or 2007 or so when you guys started, right? What financial challenges did you have, and are there industry-specific financial challenges with starting an insurance company?
The financial challenges are really the same that every new business faces. You have expenses and no revenue. By definition, we have a problem,
right?
But eventually that kind of can take care of itself. And so if you are, borrowing money, or you have been saving money, and you have the ability to cover those expenses in some way, shape, or form while you're building a revenue base, then you're in a good spot. Over time, then those can go away, and it can finally turn into a profitable business. And how quickly you can turn it from a not profitable business to a profitable business is your own personal happiness, I guess, is how you can monitor that. In terms of our business specifically, I think that for most banks, it's a unique business. I don't think banks are necessarily afraid of insurance agencies, but the nature of recurring revenue is something that banks sometimes have a hard time figuring out. But there are some that specialize in it, so you should go to one of those.
Yeah.
And then I think financial challenges that I think about going back, as you said, to 2007. There was a senator we had named Senator Obama, and then he became the president, and he had some ideas on how a healthcare system would operate, and so that frightened us for sure. Not to say that we believed our value would disappear overnight, because employers would still have to figure out how to navigate this world.
Yeah.
If they were buying insurance from Blue Cross of Illinois or getting it from the federal government, they still would probably need to lean on advisors like us. So, but that didn't mean that we still weren't a little bit nervous. So that was about the only time that I could really recall where it was like, wow, maybe our world just looks a little bit different.
Yeah.
That caused a little concern.
Did you find yourself in 2008, 9, 10, when those changes really came into effect, shifting your role from providers to advisors a little bit, or did it not affect your business that much?
We thought about how our roles were going to change, and obviously it ended up not, and it did though. I think the Affordable Care Act did some great things for our industry. It created a lot of confusion in the industry. And I think that confusion, though, only made us more valuable. Employers wanted to talk to other people and understand what was going to happen to their business or was going to happen to their employees. So that confusion created opportunity for us, really. But I never really thought too much about how our role would change, because it never materialized the way that we thought it would.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's a positive overall. But Yeah, so when you guys started the business, did you take a loan from a bank, or did you have an angel investor, or did you guys just use money that you had saved up over time?
Yeah, so the nice part is that it was all family. So we were able to work it out, but we created a loan structure that we could pay back, and each of my brothers' scenarios was a little bit different, but we got through it, and it wasn't too terribly long before we were able to turn a profit, and then our wives could go to the grocery store again, and not just.
I was going to say that's a scary moment, right? Deciding to go that far into debt at that point in life when you have kids or kids on the way, or between all your guys' situations. So what gave you, I mean, I guess this is more so from your perspective, you can't exactly speak for all four of the brothers, but what gave you that final push to say, let's put it all on the line?
It was something that I had been thinking about, and it was really trying to pull my brothers along that maybe were a little risk averse or less inclined to want to start their own business. I'm not taking the credit for it, and I certainly couldn't have done it without them. But I think that was trying to just figure out what was going to make sense. And I knew that I loved the organization that I worked for. I really liked my boss. There was just something about hanging your own shingle that was exciting for me. And then once we kind of talked about it over the course of that first year and put together a business plan, then we never really for a second thought we would fail because everything had been planned out in our mind. Now, in reality, not everything had been planned, but pretty good, and it worked.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Can you share some tips with best practices, managing cash flow, and keeping your finances organized in the organization from that start?
Have a brother named Jack. He is. It was a CPA at Price Waterhouse. Understood that aspect of the business that, quite candidly, I know very little about. So it's really been something, though, that especially as a small business and you first have employees, all of a sudden we realized, wow, if for some reason we're not able to make payroll, this is not just about us anymore. Now this is impacting the lives of what was a very small Stumm nation at that time. And so whatever really needed to be done to make sure that payroll was met was done. So if that meant I wasn't going to take a paycheck that particular month, then that was fine by me because we wanted to make sure our employees were taken care of. So, kind of back to your point, Donny, earlier, is like, just before you take that leap of faith, make sure that you've thought about this all the way through and you have planned, because otherwise, you will run into some issues.
Right. It's not just you're worried about.
That's right.
Yeah.
How do you separate that, in your daily life? Is that something that weighs on you or that you think about often, or is that something that you try to leave at work and then disassociate and come home and be able to spend time with your family?
We reached a point where cash flow was a little less of a concern. If any of my employees listen to this, you're going to freak them out, Anthony, that they're not going to get paid. So I want to make sure that everybody knows.
We're talking more so about the beginning stages.
Yeah. But at the beginning, sure.
Yeah.
Those were things that, would keep me up at night. There were a lot of things. You take on a tremendous amount of risk, and it's just not a financial risk. Now it starts turning into a risk of what we're doing and what we're selling and what we're promising and what we're actually transacting on behalf of our clients. That, to me, just carries a tremendous amount of weight of risk, and that's the kind of stuff that would keep me up at night. Again, as you get larger, begin to surround ourselves, the four of us, with people that are smarter than we are. It starts to reduce that anxiety or that stress. But I love what I do, and I do bring home some of what I do. My kids are interested in that. My wife asks me about it all the time, so I do bring some of that stuff home, but generally try not to bring the stress home. And we promote that even within our own employee base. There's a work-life balance, kicking people out of the office, like go home and spend time with your kids. And Just making sure that they don't feel stressed and have to worry about things, because we try not to do that either.
You said it was fourth generation, this business?
So the business itself is technically 2 generations,
Okay.
although working in insurance is a
Okay.
fourth generation. Group insurance or employee benefits didn't really become a thing until the very early 70s. So,
Sure.
But going back to 1911 is when my great-grandfather wrote his first life insurance policy in Illinois.
Wow. So are you hoping that it's going to be 5 generations?
We talk about that. I don't know if I'm hoping for that, but it certainly could be a possibility.
Yeah.
Between my brothers and I, there are a number of kids. The business is tough among brothers. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. We love it. We get along great, and as I said early on, we stay in our lanes. But working with brothers can be tough. I would never want to be in a position, though, to tell my niece that she needs to work a little harder, or tell my brother I have a problem with his son and the way he's handling this situation. It starts to get a little murky and tough. So, we've had a ton of fun, and I would encourage him to take a look. But, we want him to do something far more exotic than handling health insurance plans.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm sure anybody who's worked with their family members before can attest to some of that. I haven't, but I can only imagine that even just among brothers, there's challenges that are, invited into the workplace when you kind of have a family dynamic and put it in the professional world.
Yeah, it would be really hard. Again, from just a day-to-day work atmosphere, somebody's falling a little short on expectations, and then you're trying to talk about what's appropriate salaries for nieces and nephews, and this gets it gets tricky, it gets hard. So again, we're planning for that. We've been thinking about that kind of stuff, but we're still a number of years away, fortunately, before anybody would be interested.
I don't mean to rush you.
No, that's great. So, and it sounds like you guys are really future oriented too in your planning. So, what are some goals that you guys have coming up for the future?
We do a sort of State of the Union with our employees every year. It's a fun party. It's actually our holiday party, but we do it in February because we're so busy in December. Just the nature of what we do. So our holiday party is in February, and we invite the employees and their spouses, and there's a little State of the Union kind of talk, like, hey, here's where we've come from, here's what we did, and here's where we're headed. So hopefully there's never any surprise or shock to the employees on what we're trying to do. But the typical goals are things that Anthony, I think most businesses might have. So there's revenue aspirations, and there's headcount aspirations and retention aspirations for like number of clients and the clients that we're hanging on to. So that kind of stuff is something that we share with those the employees at that party, but kind of monitoring it throughout the year. And we can sort of predict almost to some extent and where we're going to be from 5 years from now. And so we'll share that with them. Like, hey, could you imagine, like, this is how many employees we're going to have, or this is what we're going to look like. And it gets to be kind of exciting. Maybe a little nerve-wracking for some in the room, but generally pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's great that you keep them involved in that process, and that they're able to look forward to that, and that they know, every day that they're coming in and that you're involved with them. I think that it's definitely a key element. So in terms of advice for other leaders in the insurance industry, what are some successful pieces of advice that have led you to be successful? And yeah, I think that's something that a lot of our listeners want to know, especially for a leadership role.
I think of the advice somebody gave me when I was 20, and it was the best advice I ever got, which is, if you want to be successful, just work half days. And it doesn't matter which 12 hours it is. So for anybody starting a business, anybody in a leadership role, don't sign up for those if you're not willing to put in the work. Again, I mentioned before, work-life balance is important, but you still got to figure out a way to put in that work, because it is a lot. That's my biggest piece of advice. My second piece of advice would be that if you don't enjoy what you're doing, then quit it. I have, since I graduated college, and certainly since 2007, I've enjoyed going to work every single day. And if for some reason that were not the case, I would walk away. And my brothers and I talk about it as well. So if you're starting a business or you're in a leadership role, if you're not having fun every day, then do something different.
That's a great piece of advice. Yeah, that's awesome.
Going along with that, do you guys feel like you're in it for the long haul and you guys are going to keep growing this until you hand it off to your kids, or do you have, aspirations of, I don't know, anything else in your career?
From the day we started, we had decided that we wanted to grow a business, and we were going to continue to grow the business as long as we continue to have fun. And if there came a point where we stopped having fun, then we were going to flatline. And that might have been okay, I had a client one time who painted only 49 parking spots on his next to his shop, because he said he never wanted to have 50 employees. And so, for him and his mindset, that worked. And so ours wasn't like, hey, we're going to get to a certain size and flatline, but we were definitely going to slow down if we ever stopped having fun. And fortunately, that has not been the case. So we will continue to grow, Donnie. To what size and to what end? We talk about it, but we're still young and having a lot of fun. So, there is no finish line in sight. And, it would be, we're kind of excited to see what we could be and the kind of influence and impact that we can have in the greater Chicagoland. And maybe even outside of the state lines, as we're starting to touch in other places as well.
That's excellent. It's always good to kind of just keep going, right? If there's a finish line, I almost think if you paint 49 spaces in your parking lot, you're really limiting your mental ability to keep on pushing. But I am curious, kind of being in this state now where you guys have become much, much more successful than where you started, obviously. Do you find it hard to keep your foot on the gas sometimes, or is there, a stasis where you guys maybe feel like your growth is limited just by feeling like you have kind of gotten to where you want to be?
There's certainly times where it's exhausting. I'd be lying to you if I told you that we had fun every day. We have fun as a leadership group or even the smaller ownership group in aggregate. Part of growing is growing pains. So, we experience those and we work through them together. But, it's, again, looking at it on an aggregate basis, we're still having a lot of fun. But, part of growing, that's the hard part.
Yeah.
Definitely. So, given that, what are some key takeaways for people just starting out? What is the advice you give to those that category? In the insurance
industry, business?
Yep.
There's I'm sure there's people starting insurance agencies all over the country every day. They're getting to be fewer and further between. Starting up an insurance agency from the ground up is there's some barriers to entry, I'll say, that make it a little bit difficult, but not to say that it's not happening. So what would I tell my next competitor, that is looking for office space right now? Tell him, go find Dr. Hatcher and get a nice little rental spot. No, it's be genuine and be smart and care about your clients, and you'll be fine.
Wow.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah, I know insurance companies right now, especially like State Farm, they're hurting pretty bad right now. I hear they've raised rates like 6 times in the past year or two, if I remember correctly. Are you finding that just the state of things now, where premiums might be going up for people? Are you incurring challenges just in today's market?
Health insurance is a little bit different than property and casualty, which is what State Farm is. And State Farm, they have hurricanes or tornadoes that are crushing them. I think you can now steal cars really easy, so they're not insuring certain kind of cars. I was reading about this.
Wow.
So health insurance is really more a function of for most employers, it's a function of the health of their population.
Yeah.
So they lean on people like us to try to help figure out what sort of programs can we implement to encourage healthier lifestyles for our employees, because we're all buying insurance together. The employer and the employees are buying it together. So what can we do? That's something that to some extent they have a little more control over it. But there are also factors working against them and their employee population. Everybody has a birthday every year, so we get older, and there are also there's something called medical trend, inflation for health insurance, if you will. I mean, I've not seen a hospital that's not under construction in America, and the cost of a knee surgery this year is more than the cost of the knee surgery last year. That's medical inflation. So there's constant rising pressures on premiums, but there are things that an employer can do with the help of their advisor to try to offset some of that. So I'm not going to say that it's going to flatline, it's going to be no change, and there are not going to be State Farm issues out there like you're describing. It's just a little different in the way that our world works. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally. Yeah. And I was curious too, you kind of mentioned about how you can influence the health of a population of a company by instituting, I don't know, I guess habits, right? Or best practices for the employees. Was there a big change when COVID-19 kind of came into the picture, where businesses were they more or less interested in instituting those policies?
I think that generally most employers out there have some sort of a desire to implement a program to keep their employees healthier. A healthy employee is a happy employee, is a productive employee, and is a retained employee. So generally speaking, I think most of them want to do that. COVID brought all kinds of challenges to our employers' businesses, even our own. We, for the most part, were able to keep going. Our employees got set up at home, and we still had to service our clients. But our clients, depending on the nature of their business, it was different. And so, if there was an employer that was trying to implement some sort of wellness program, and all their employees are at home, it was a little trickier. But almost to some extent, even more important at that particular time to make sure that the employees were still staying active and doing the things that they would want them to do to help keep their premiums down.
Sure.
Definitely, that's great.
Do you have any other questions?
Well, I was just gonna say, is there any programs that can be put into place? The employer can put into place, like health packages, or per se. Oh, we have because I've always seen, the employer I work for, they give health passes. I get to go to XYZ gym. Is there things like that they can put in place?
Yeah, absolutely. It really runs the gamut. What we're talking about is a wellness program. So wellness programs range from free and very minimally invasive to employees, and very exotic and expensive and very invasive, where employees have to do a lot of things or even get stuck with needles and have biometric screenings going on. So every employer is kind of somewhere in between those two.
Right.
Like I said, for the most part, everybody wants to be maternal in some way and encouraging healthier lifestyles for their employees. But whether their employees are going to be receptive to that, they have a budget for that, it aligns with their culture that they're establishing, that's really up to them, and we try to help them figure that out. So there's a wide range of those things. We'd be here all day.
Definitely. Well, we really appreciate you coming on and taking the time to tell your story and even give us advice, because I know health insurance and insurance in general is something that I'm pretty new to. So, yeah, we really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you very much. I was honored and flattered at the same time to be invited to your show, and I had a lot of fun. I hope you guys learned a little something, and the listeners did as well.
Definitely. Now, where can we find you guys? I know you obviously have a website. Is that www.stumminsurance.com?
Just Stumm.com.
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 Okay, so everyone listening, www.stumm.com. Perfect. Awesome. And then, you guys can find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and follow us on YouTube. Thanks.